Hey guys, so today we are looking at part one of the components of fitness and fitness testing. Now, before we go into the components of fitness and the testing, we need to look at what are the reasons for testing as well as the limitations of the testing. So, the reasons to carry out fitness testing are to identify strengths and or weaknesses in a performance or the success of a training program. We use it to monitor improvement. We use it to show a starting level of fitness. We could use it to compare against other groups or national averages. We can use it to inform our training requirements, use it to set goals or to motivate us, or to provide a variety within a training program. So these are the reasons why we would look into fitness testing. However, there are some limitations to fitness testing. For example, some of the tests are often not sport specific or are too general. They do not replicate the movements of an activity. They may also not replicate the competitive conditions required in a sport. For instance, a game of rugby. If you were to make a tackle in a closed environment, it would be very different to doing it in a game scenario. The results can be inaccurate and some have questionable reliability. We'll look further into those tests later. They also must be carried out with the correct procedures to increase validity. More on that later. So, an exam question for you. Fitness testing is becoming increasingly important in sports preparation and performance. Identify two limitations in fitness testing or of fitness testing. Now, the key word here for today, or the command word for today, is identify. Now, this is only worth 2 marks. So really, you only need to tell me what those limitations are. You don't need to go into a huge amount of detail about them. So if we go back, we can see what our limitations were. So tests are often not sports specific. They do not replicate movements or activity. They do not replicate competitive conditions. The results can be inaccurate. There could be some questionable reliability, or they must be carried out with the correct procedures to increase validity. So, if we were to go and have a look at our answer, so let's have a look at where we would get our marks from. So as I said, you only need to identify 2 points. So it could be any of the following. Are they valid or reliable? Are they sport specific? Do they replicate the same movements or muscles required in chosen sport? Do they replicate competitive conditions? There can be operative errors, e.g. sprint test by a stopwatch. We'll get onto that a little bit later. Some test results are predictive and results are from norm tables and therefore not necessarily accurate, e.g. the Harvard step test. Again, we'll go into that a little bit later. Motivation can have a major impact on scores. So if you turn up on the day and you're not really bothered about doing the testing, you may not get the results that you deserve. So something to think about when you're doing these in your class. So, in order to understand what tests are to be done, we also want to look at the components of fitness and how to test them. So, we're going to look at a few of these today, and then we'll look at more of them in the next lesson. So, to start with, a component of fitness is cardiovascular endurance or aerobic power. This is the ability of the heart and the lungs to supply oxygen to the working muscles. So a really good test to do this is the multi-stage fitness test, also known as the bleep test. The way you set this out is you're going to have 2 cones set 20 meters apart. Must be 20 meters apart. The CD plays bleeps. The time between each bleep decreases, so you need to run faster as the test progresses. You must reach the line before the bleep or you're out. So in terms of reliability, we need to make sure that the cones are always exactly 20 meters apart. And we also want to ensure that you're warmed up first. If you're not warmed up, then you're probably not going to get the result that you deserve for your cardiovascular endurance test. So, having a look at an exam question based off what we've just looked at, we've got Alex here. Alex will be using a variety of fitness tests to monitor his level of performance. Evaluate the use of the multi-stage fitness test as a valid measure of performance for a tennis player. So we need to look at the command words here. Evaluate. So we're not just going to state a few different points. We really need to delve deeper here. Okay? So points that we want to look at. What about the multi-stage fitness test does apply to a tennis player? And what about the multi-stage fitness test does not link to a tennis player or a game of tennis? So we want to look at both the agreeing and the disagreeing. So to have a look at this mark scheme, so we want to look at awarding 1 mark for each of the following points up to a maximum of 4 marks. So when we're having a look at agreeing, we look at the cardiovascular endurance is a key component of fitness to enable Alex to compete for a minimum of 2 or more sets, so test is relevant to Alex. 20-meter shuttles are repeated in the test, which replicates the game. So these are 2.4. Then we need to look at the against or the disagreeing. So the test is not sport specific. It does not test the different intensities that are required in tennis. So e.g. 5-meter, 10-meter sprints with periods of inactivity in between. The test does not test any of the skill-based requirements of tennis, so serving, ground strokes, or any other equivalent. It can also be argued that other components of fitness are more important to tennis, which we'll be looking at a little bit later. So agility is an example, to move around the court quickly. Any other sort of suitable response would be okay here, but these are the key ones that would be worth visiting in your exam. And I would suggest talking about 2 agree and 2 disagree for your responses. So now we have an example of a graph question. You will always get a graph question in your exams. So this is a good opportunity for you to practice. So the question we have here relates to the multi-stage fitness test. 2 female students completed the multi-stage fitness test as part of their GCSE lesson. The following results were recorded. Hannah, who is 15 years old, scored 5.7. Saskia is 16 years old and scored 9.9. Table 1 shows the normative data for females for the multi-stage fitness test. So if we have a look, we can see the levels for poor, fair, average, good, very good, and excellent. So if we have a look at Hannah, we can see that Hannah scored a 5.7 in the 15-year-old category. So that would be here. So if she scored a 5.7, she would be above 5.3, but below 6.5. So that means that she would be in the fair column. Saskia is 16 years old and scored a 9. So a very good would be 9.8, which she's above, or 11.11, which she's below. So she would go into the very good column. So The question we have is, analyze the data in table 1. What does it show about Hannah and Saskia's levels of cardiovascular fitness? So the key word here is analyze. So we've already done that together. So let's have a look at the marking criteria. So award up to 2 marks for identifying Hannah and Saskia's level of cardiovascular fitness. So Hannah's score indicates that she's at a fair level of cardiovascular fitness, and Saskia's score indicates that she's at a very good level of cardiovascular fitness. So all you need to do is state those exactly as they are shown in the graph. Another component of flexibility that let's edit that bit out. Another component of fitness that we're going to be looking at today is flexibility. Flexibility is the range of movements possible at a joint. So a really good example of a fitness test for flexibility is the sit and reach test. In order to do this, you need to take off your shoes, put your feet flat against and sit at the sit and reach box. Your knees must be straight. You must reach forwards as far as you can. You must repeat this 3 times and record your best score. Now, in terms of reliability, your shoes must be taken off, remembering that the soles of shoes can be different sizes, so that could impact the data. The overall data is measured in centimeters. So a reminder of what we looked at in today's lesson. So we started off by looking at the reasons for and the limitations for fitness testing. So we looked at identifying the strengths and weaknesses in a performance and the success of a training program. We looked at monitoring improvement, showing a starting level of fitness. We looked at comparing against other groups or national averages, informing our training requirements, motivating or setting goals, and providing variety in a training program. We then had a look at some of the limitations of fitness testing. So we looked at how tests are not sport specific. They can be too general. They do not replicate movements of an activity. They do not replicate competitive conditions required in sports. The results can be inaccurate and some have questionable reliability. They must be carried out with the correct procedures to increase validity. So those are some of those limitations. We then had a look at a few of the components of fitness. So we had a look at cardiovascular endurance, and we looked at the multi-stage fitness test as a way of testing that endurance. We also had a look at flexibility, and we looked at the sit and reach test as a way of measuring that flexibility. Now, next lesson, we're going to look into a few other elements. We're going to have a look at different types of strength, power. We're going to have a look at agility, balance, coordination, reaction time, and speed. So lots of other components of fitness and fitness tests to look at over the coming lessons.